Good morning. It is time to look at spot market freight and see what the volumes look like and a few harsh words. Stay tuned. Right after this. Go. Yes. Good morning. How is ya? How is ya? It's December. Jeez. It's July 23rd, 2025. We're going into the the second quarter? Pretty strong, right? January, February, March, April, May, June. No, it's the third quarter. I don't know my quarters. Anyways, hope you got your coffee. We're sitting there. Everybody in the metalhead world is mourning Ozzy Osbourne's passing, which was, it's pretty interesting that he just literally did a show 2 weeks ago, and it just shows you that he was in it till the end. So, yeah. So, anyways, that's the news of the day in my world. The dog, he just got his cone taken off today, so he's pretty happy about that. Let's see what else. Other than that, there's really not much to talk about. Freight has been interesting, and the dynamics being changed by the English proficiency thing I'm seeing some results of it, but I have a feeling that it's creating different problems that need to be addressed. And one of the things that this is an open letter to brokers. Okay. Brokers need to be better about educating their customers on the hours of service. Because if they don't, what they find is that they're trying to move a solo run with the team, and that might be more difficult to accomplish. And I think a lot of these companies were the ones that were, that you've seen them in the truck stop switching their numbers around or creating ghost team drivers. I think that those companies were running this stuff. And right now there's not as many of them trying to do that. And so I'm seeing all these scheduling conflicts with these loads that I'm seeing on the load boards. And it's frankly, it's been a problem. Back in look, when I first started driving it, we were on paper. And my trainer taught me the best ways to utilize paper logbooks. And every now and then, the company would we used a system called Mobile Max. It predated Qualcomm, and what they would do is they would audit your logs to what the Mobile Max would say, like, I don't know, once a quarter, and they would see who the rule benders were. And while it was kind of like they brought you in the office and they said, "Hey, we noticed this, this, and this. Just be careful," right? And the more on this list that you had, guess who got the harder to do freight? Guess who got the ones that get it done, right? And that was something that, as a new CDL holder, I struggled with, because you didn't want, like, you wanted to hold on to safety. You didn't want your record ruined. And so whenever they would ask you to do a load that probably shouldn't have been asked, you could either say no and have that pressure of, well, now they're going to give me the crappy runs, versus saying yes and making it work and putting everything at risk. That was the kind of pressure, and ELDs took that pressure off, because, like, oh, nope, don't have the hour, sorry. And of course, you got some companies today that will still make you unplug the ELD or have you use PC, or suddenly clean up your hours, you know, and those are, it seems like those are the ones that some of these loads are geared for. Because, and then on top of that, they'll sit there, oh, $150 late fee, $150 if you're not tracking, all these different fees. And what's happening is that you're 10 minutes late, $150, knowing that run probably couldn't be done legally. So, I mean, there's a lot of these shenanigans that are on a serious uptick right now. And it's frankly, it's getting old, because it's affected revenue. Because when I'm looking at, like, everybody's talking about DAT, right? Everybody compares DAT to 1-2-3 low board. Oh, there's not as much volume on 1-2-3. That's true. DAT is the master low board when it comes to volume. They've been around for 50 years, literally. Okay, dial a truck, the TV screens and the truck stops, right? But when you look at 100 loads in a 100-mile area, maybe only 20 are actually good, that are doable, because they're either multiple postings, or they're times that don't work, or they're looking for teams, but they're not going to list it as a team truck because they don't want to pay a team rate. So I mean, there's it's, I'm trying not to look at the comments, but it seems to be a big problem ever since this English proficiency thing has kicked in. And there's video after video after video and picture after picture of people changing their MC numbers with magnetic signs, or sometimes just duct tape and a Sharpie. You see this footage all the time. There's some people have found, look, everybody's like, ELD is going to limit the way we make money. Well, people are going to find a way around it, right? The broker transparency thing, if that ever comes through or whatever, people are going to find a way around it, right? People are going to find a way around the English proficiency laws or rules, or whatever you call them. And so this is the environment that you're in. This is the environment that you live in, right? And most drivers that I've talked to are their own worst enemy. These are the harsh words. And no, it's not political or biblical, I'm sorry, or political. And The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over, expecting different results. We've all heard that because it's the truth. And I've seen people make the same mistakes over and over. Well, maybe all they're doing is rearranging problems. They're never solving them. And that's something that is a huge epidemic in our industry. And there are companies out there that will take advantage of it. There are people out there that will take advantage of that. Oh, you want to lease another truck? You're only 20,000 in debt, but we'll lease you another truck. You ready? Let's go. I've seen it over and over and over. And so when I see these Facebook posts and these Instagram posts of how drivers deserve this and drivers deserve that, and how we run, the country, there's a lot of truth to that, but then there's a lot of entitlement that is caused from dealing with problems that the drivers probably caused themselves. In other words, the ELD, that was never about safety, it's about compliance. On one hand, it was supposed to make the roads safer, but all it did was rearrange the problem of hours of service, and you had to master a new system. And the people that can't master the new system, when it was implemented, went away. Or they went out and bought a glider, or they went out and bought a 97 FLD, right? Because they didn't want to deal with the new system. And as fast changing as this industry is, and this AI thing has taken over, this AI, it's officially here. And I'm seeing more and more videos of self-driving trucks. And whether you believe that self-driving trucks are going to take over your job or not, it does not matter. But here's what you have to look at. The truth is, they're looking to replace you one way or another. Whether it's a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, they want an automated, do as I say system, and that's done either through technology or through extortion. Hey, you owe us $20,000. You can't leave. Here's your pennies for doing our freight, right? And there's so many people that fall for that. People call themselves owner-operators when they literally have zero control of where they go, where they repair their truck. Are you a true owner-operator? Now, whether you're a true business owner, that's true. But you have to look at your platform. Are you a company driver just paying all the bills? Or are you actually building something by buying your own truck? And so these are the harsh truths. The other harsh truth is I can't talk. These are the harsh truths that a lot of people just choose to ignore because they feel like they're trapped. Like, I've asked owner operators, hey, why do you do this? When they call me and complain, why do you do this then? Why are you here? Why are you here in that truck? There in that truck? Why are you there? Well, there's nothing else I can do. Okay, we'll change that. But it's hard to change that when you can't even afford your rent because your truck broke down and no one could get to it till Friday because the parts are on back order because everybody else with the same dang truck has broke down at the same time. And so when you look at your business, you're a business owner-operator, whether you're leasing your truck, renting your truck, owning your truck, you own your truck outright, you are a business owner. And if you look at your operation, if you're only making like 50, $100 a day net, let's say that you go up to a company, a truck company, and say, hey, I would love to work for you. Do you have any benefits? No. How much do you pay? $100 a day. Would you sign up for that? You would tell that company to get bent. But yet people do it to themselves all the time because they're not acting like owner operators. You know, if contract freight's not working, change it. If spot market freight's not working, change it. And the spot market is ever flowing, and the spot market can be as good as you put your effort into it. Is if you can find consistency in relationships and keep your costs down, man, you're good to go. There are people that have been part of the spot market for a long time, and they're doing very well. I guarantee they're not calling, TQL and King of Freight for all their loads every single day, 20 times a day. They've figured out a groove. They figured out a system. They figured out relationships. And that's how you navigate the spot market. Contract freight, you're kind of at the mercy of the contract. When it's good, it's good. But when it stops, it puts companies out of business. The eggs in one basket thing, right? So I mean that's the thing. And I'm going to go to Gary's comment here. Sounds like you're talking about me. There's a lot of people that stopped watching me because they thought I was specifically talking about them. And what I'm doing is, Gary, is I'm going by what I've seen, what I've heard, what I've been told by 20 different drivers. You're not the only one in your position, right? The settlements tell the truth. Okay? The numbers tell the truth. And Gary, you're not the only one I've had this conversation with. So it's not that I'm talking about you. It's not that I'm being passive aggressive. It's just that I talked to so many drivers over the last several years since I've been in this desk, okay, and on the road, that tell me the same things over and over and over. And the problems are never solved. They're just rearranged. So it's not that I'm talking about you, Gary. I'm talking about every driver that's ever called me and refused the truth. Here's your numbers. Here's what you're doing. That's it. I'm not telling them, you should do this, you should do that. I'm not one to tell a person to file bankruptcy because that's not my place. My place is to point out the obvious and the truth that people refuse to see. And that's why my channel is I'm actually losing subscribers. That's why I'm not like one of these YouTube gurus that can promise you $4 a mile everywhere you go and show you all how fancy everything is and how easy it is to navigate, blah blah blah. No, I tell people the truth. Now, I'm going to brag a little bit, but like Trucklogics tells me the top 5 earning trucks at all times. And 3 to 4 out of 5 of the trucks that I'm dispatching are always in that 5. Why? Because I take the time to learn the driver, learn their limitations, come up with strategies that help them make as much money as possible. Now, what they do with that money is up to them. There are some drivers that accept the truth and make changes. And then there's some drivers that like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. And then a year later, they're out of business. And don't just take my word for it. You can talk to Jeff. You can talk to DIY. You can talk any, Spectre. You can talk to any of these fleet owners. They'll tell you the same thing. We give you the platform to make the money. What you do with that money is up to you. right? So I'm not talking about you, Gary, per se. I'm talking about every driver that's had this problem. That's where the harsh truth thing comes in. And that's why I'm not the most popular YouTuber. I got 23 people in here because people don't like to hear the truth. And frankly, it keeps me up at night. You know, and when I see when you know, over the years I've dispatched many drivers, and the ones that have the positive energy, the ones that have a good work ethic, the ones that don't complain, they're the ones that do well. You know, let's look at Shannon here. Shannon's the kind of person that just goes, almost a little bit too much. But she doesn't complain. Every now and then she'll call me at an event about a certain area that she's in or a situation that she's in. But then I calm her down, and then we help find a load, and then she's good to go. Now, I've openly admitted my struggles with trucks out west, but I figured out a strategy for that. Because I sit here and rack my brain. I'm like, okay. And I had to observe a truth, right? I had to observe a truth. The truth was, I don't know the area very well, and so I had to learn it. The other harsh truth is, it doesn't matter which Western state you're coming out of, you're going to take a hit. California is the highest paying freight coming outbound, but you definitely aren't making your money going in. You might make the most money outbound out of California to Colorado or to Washington or to New Mexico, but the outbound volume keeps you from doing well after that. So at some point, you're going to take a hit, just like if you go to the Northeast. If you're on a dedicated run that lands in Connecticut, Maine, you know, all of New England, you're going to take a hit at some point. So you minimize the hit and strategize for the next run. And too many of us are focused on one run, not realizing at the end of the week. You know, there's been times where I'll do a report for a driver that I dispatched, and then they go, oh, well, I didn't realize that, because the numbers don't lie. Don't take my word for it. Do your numbers. Look at how much you're really making. Then ask yourself, would you work for a company that treated you like you treat yourself? Right? SST, we've all resembled Steve's statements at one point. All right, let's go back to the beginning of the comments here. I appreciate everybody coming in and putting up with me. My name is Nobody. Good morning. Cheap Freight Hauler is out of his zone. He's in Ohio. Good morning. Randy, good morning from Phoenix. SST with the horns. Frankfort, Indiana, the heavy place, not the light place. Yeah, I've been there a few times. it's funny. Sean runs a lot of the same stuff I did over there. Start over. Nope. Good morning, Steve. I'm not late for a change. It has been a bit slow this past week. Shippers focused on lowest rate. How do we survive? Consistency, patience, don't give up. And that's where I'm at. I'm trying to create consistency. I'm trying to keep my patience, which has been more difficult here lately. Don't give up. No, I'm not a give up type person. Well, sometimes I am. But, you know, I get over myself, and then I pull my bootstraps up, and then I quit crying. TK, what's up? Hey now. Gary Compton, good morning. Gary Cooks in Hammond, Louisiana. We'll take a look at the freight out there, Gary, if you're still in here. Fraud has entered into customer credit applications. Our brokerage issued a letter. They have spent more time, verify phone numbers, emails. We ask agents to ensure prospects are real. CDN, you are not kidding. We had 2 people with a Gmail account trying to book freight under our MC number, and they were hitting all over the load board. Suddenly I was getting carrier packet requests for loads coming out of California, loads coming out of Texas, loads coming out of the New England. And luckily, they copied the email from the FMCSA site and called and or emailed me to verify. And so that's a huge problem. So I'm glad that I have brokers. Like anytime a broker needs a highway packet or they need to verify, I do not get upset with them because that saved our butt. They're, brokers that do their due diligence. And and that's the thing about broker relationships that's important. When you work with the same 4 or 5 different brokers, you're not checking credit. You're not having to wonder if it's a fraud. You're not having to wonder if they're going to pay you detention or layover, right? If something goes wrong. You don't have to wonder. Like I literally called on a load, and I talked about this last week. Never got the shipper address. And then when it came time to find out where we were going, they ghosted me. Even their accounting department had my number that they weren't answering. And finally, I got a brief text, hey, load's not there. Give up. And never got a tonu for it. And that's a broker I will never, ever work with again, ever. And if I ever meet them at Matt's or whatever, I'm going to tell them what's up. I said, this is a problem in your organization. I understand that brokers have certain practices that are less than desirable, and that's just how things are doing, like the whole change the city, thing. I can deal with that. But when you completely ghost someone and give me a fake rate con, that's a problem. So, it doesn't bode well. Mrs. A is in the house. Everybody's saying hi. I heard him mention hardware is just going to get biblical. Not yet. Gary Cook says Super Eagle will reset your hours. Well, that's an accusation. I'm not making that accusation, but if that's what's happening, then that's part of the problem. I have a feeling it's Snorelord's Old Testament. Yeah, if you go to the OG channel, there's a great sermon that this person did. I uploaded from one of those truck stop CDs that you find in the lounge about anger, righteous anger. And it's a story about Moses, and it's a great listen. Brokers don't have an incentive to educate customers. They've almost been completely absolved from liability in the event of an accident. I disagree with that, because here's the thing. If a broker tells a shipper, hey, this 800-mile run can't be done in 6 hours, right? If they don't tell them that, they're going to keep doing it, number one. Number two, if they don't tell them that and they accept the quote, they accept the load, now they're forced into, they're making their own jobs harder. Imagine posting an impossible load on a load board and knowing that 30 phone calls are going to happen, knowing that maybe out of that 30, only 1 or 2 are going to be willing to do it. Why would you put yourself under that kind of pressure? I don't know. That's common sense, but it's in the shippers, it's in the broker's best interest to educate the shippers so they're not having to pay an extraordinary price as well. And I understand that a broker that's trying to move a bunch of Walmart freight from Walmart is going to have a much more stressful time than somebody who's handling freight that's all open window on both ends, like paper. Oh, picks up 24/7, delivers 24/7. There's no pressure in that. And coincidentally, you don't get paid as much for that kind of freight. But the Walmart stuff, you have to put fines on, you have to make sure it's not late, you have to reschedule if you are late. There's a lot more pressure. There's more pressure for the broker, there's more pressure for the carrier. And so I understand that dynamic changes from, if I was a broker doing nothing but Walmart freight, I would probably be, 2 pots of coffee in versus the guy that's like trying to handle paper loads and just trying to find the carriers that will do it for the cheapest, right? Honestly, drivers are responsible for knowing the hours of service and not putting themselves in the position to bend or break the rules. Correct. And a lot of them ignore that. There's been many times where a broker tells me, hey, this picks up, da, da, da. And I'm like, okay, that can't be done in one shift. And then they go, well, we get it done all the time. Okay. So I stopped saying that because obviously the person doesn't want to learn. So now I say those hours will not work for us, which is the truth. I'm not lying to them, right? Yeah, Sean, we're not allowed to cover our numbers here and run rogue. There was a picture floating around. I remember seeing it of there was a Snyder IC truck that also had Landstar numbers and stickers on it as well. Like, how is that even legal? And I guess the person got turned in and he ended up getting fired from Snyder. SSD rarely runs out his clock. Sterling Wheels in the house. Riddle me this, Steve. Customer emails available load. 11 brokers have same load posted, yet carriers call and say a rate I believe needed to win load. I explained the budget, yet carrier asked for more. Carriers are always going to ask for more. I've dispatched 5-digit number loads that wasn't enough for the driver. They're always going to go higher. So it's a matter of knowing the market, right? Obviously, a load going from St. Louis to Denver is going to pay a lot higher than a load going from, say, Miami, Florida to Denver per mile because of the market. But that carrier that's in Miami that is trying to be told to go to Denver, he's going to want the maximum amount that they can because a lot of them don't know their numbers. Weather in the south is juicy and oppressive. Have a day. Yes, it's been like that here. AC's been running almost nonstop. I actually had to turn it up a little bit so it wouldn't come on all the time. Let's see. And you are in the south. But Steve, the company commercial says I'm the captain of my own ship and grow my own business. Yet Schneider IC still average 1,200 after expenses before taxes a week. Right, because numbers don't lie. Now, I look at past Schneider ICs. They've been able to build something. They can live off that $1,200, and they end up with a truck that's well maintained that probably still has a good warranty on it. And then they could build from there. And out of the Schneider ICs, the ones that I see is succeeding the most and the ones that don't complain, the ones that manage their money. Sean's been there a minute and he's happy there. Most of the people that don't do well with the Schneider IC program is because they're complainers or their expenses are too high, their personal expenses. So if they can't refinance the truck, then they end up going under. What did Gary do? Gary took his truck and moved it before it was this extraordinary price to move the truck. Went to the spot market and then was able to kind of build things from there. The couple of Snyder Finance people that we've had a few. They ended up refinancing their truck or changing their truck, and that's what made them succeed. So, I mean, there's a strategy for everything. So that's the thing. You're here for purple spankings. I've changed the way I'm running. I'm hoping to turn things around. This is hard for one person to do by themselves. That is true, Gary. That is absolutely true. And it's getting harder with the AI and the private load boards and the broker's not wanting to deal with anybody other than a dispatcher for a company, that it gets harder, Gary. I understand that, man. I understand. And you found some help, and kudos to you, my friend. The truth is, shippers are leveraging multiple brokers to fight for lowest rate. Owner operators, PSA, not every load is negotiable, despite perception brokers are stacking their pockets. I agree with that. We've all resembled Steve's statements at one point. I'm not quitting your channel. I love being the carb rebel. Nice. Gary, you nailed it. If you're one truck carrier or solo freight broker, hard to compete against big carriers and brokers. Best to be an owner operator agent in a mid-sized company. Where are the cheap fuel prices? Actually, I have a tool for that. We can take a look at that. My company has started finding me loads. I've returned to the spot market and off to a better turnaround. Cheap Freight says this is the best low board freight channel I found on the tube. Thank you. I appreciate that. Shannon says, great coffee, gratitude, a morning walk in the sunshine, Southern Illinois, pre-tripping and on my way to Alabama today. Yeah, she's got some hard running today, too. Yeah, we talked about that earlier, acceleration rules. Rest in peace. Theo from the Cosby Show died also. Yeah, he was a good gratitude dude. You find some videos of him, man. He was always like, I don't think he was under the Hollywood spell, man. I think he had his stuff together. Yeah, Bruce Willis is on his way out. This is Ozzy Osbourne channel. Rest in peace, Ozzy. I emailed about a multi-stop load that had an 8 a.m. appointment in Plano, Illinois, a noon appointment in Shelby, Iowa the same day, about 6 hours between the two. A noon appointment. Yeah. Right? Thoughts on AI and brokerages to manage communication and rate establishment. It's here. And it's interesting because they're going as far as having keyboard noises, typing noises to fool you into thinking that you're dealing with a real person. It's kind of like during COVID when they had the fake cardboard cutouts of people in the fake crowd in the NFL and MLB games, right? Pam, good morning. Schneider IC equals no negotiations, but they have massive sales teams securing big contracts. Lease driver just has to book the load. Schneider sales is making IC drivers successful if they allow them to, if the ICs allow themselves to. And I've mentioned this many times. It's redundant. It's a broken record, but I'll say it again. When I used to visit the OCs a lot, I utilized the OCs, St. Louis, Indianapolis, and Dallas, especially because I can find a place to park in the middle of Indianapolis. I can find a place to park in the middle of Dallas and not have to worry about security or anything else. And so I enjoyed those yards. And it would never fail. Someone would recognize me from YouTube and say, hey, man, what's up? And I could talk to 3 drivers with the same exact truck, same exact running area, same exact specs on the truck, even the same color of the truck. And they're all 3 of them have a different story. One will tell you that they're doing great, that they love it, and they would thank me. Then there were others that were like, yeah, I'm doing all right. I wish Schneider would do this. And then you got the one that's like, I can't make it run. And then the Schneider does this wrong. And Schneider does this wrong. And Schneider does this wrong. And Schneider does this wrong. Yeah, take the company that's been around, how many years? And tell them how wrong they're being. And that's a level of narcissism. That's a level of like, okay, you know better than the $1 million company, right? Every company makes mistakes. Every company has its flaws, granted. And has Schneider lost contracts because of negligence or ignorance? Yes. But they know how to recover. They know that complaining doesn't work. And all you need is a proactive person to help with that. Right? And that's kind of that's and so I saw this difference. And it was these people were equipped the same exactly, truck, freight pool, running area. And the ones that were complaining the most, were the ones that never made it. The ones that were laid back were the ones that, laid back and grateful and kind of knew their numbers. They're the ones that did well. And if their numbers weren't working, they would do something like either refinance the truck or get their own truck. There's a lot of people that do the Snyder Finance thing for a year, and then they get their own truck. But they stay in the Snyder system, and it works for them. I went months without having to call Snyder for anything, for any problem. And they didn't go out of their way to bug me. And so I was low maintenance. I solved problems myself. Hey, there's a trailer light on. I'll fix it myself. I'm not going to sit here and, blast it on social media. Look what this driver did. And, yeah, driver's going to do that, right? This guy dropped this trailer and put no defects, and it had 2 lights out. I had to put 2 lights in. You know what? Pop, pop, boom. Lights are done. I'm off to the races. You know what? So in a year and a half out of the truck, I'm now the parts lead call center rep here at Grove City Peterbilt. It's about being able to adapt, just like with the markets. You must adapt, right? I agree with that. Chief Ray says because one of those drivers has a Pinto and the other has a Porsche or Hellcat for their personal vehicle, right? That's true. So anyways, let's take a look at some loads and let's see what you're up against, and let's look at the numbers, right? This is 123 low board. 48065 is my code if you want to try it out for 30 days. Don't take my word for it. Look at it yourself. Anyways, a lot of great tools here that I use every single day. So let me tell you my tabs when I sign in. The first one is my Gmail account. The second one is Trucklogics. The third one is Samsara. And then on the second screen over here, I put 123 low board, my Like Trucking email address, and factorsnetwork.com for credit checks. And then I have 15 load boards that I bring up that are all private load boards, and then DAT to check volumes. And then in 2 other browsers, I have 2 different Like Trucking email addresses that I monitor. That's my morning. Every single morning, I fire all those up. 123 is always on because this market rate tool is one of the best tools out there. It tells me my fuel. It tells me my tolls. It tells me the history of the lane. Gives me a small map so I can kind of guess where we're going here, right? It tells me negotiation strength, like I've got a little bit of leverage asking for this lane. And it actually gives me volumes in each direction. This is a Florence, Kentucky to Elkhorn, Wisconsin. There's a pretty good load counts on both directions here. And I can just view loads, right? Gives me my estimated fuel cost, toll cost. I can look at it, 392 miles, roughly. And so there you go. This is a tool I have open all the time. Load availability. Let's put this on van. If I want to see, okay, let's say I'm going to take a load to Alabama, right? There's a load coming out of Iowa going to Alabama. Well, Iowa's yellow, so that means it's probably not going to be the greatest rate coming out. We probably got good money going in. But then let's look at Alabama. So let's look at the outbound in Alabama to make sure that we're not going to a dead area. And then we sort this by highest rate, see where the long haul stuff's going. $1.87 a mile to go to Utah. They're at 35. Rate check's got it at 38. So they're a little bit low. Valley, Alabama to Longmont, Colorado. Decatur, Alabama to Middleton, Massachusetts. So, the long haul stuff's going either northeast or west. $1.23 to go to California. No thanks. $2.90, almost $3 a mile to go to Riviera Beach, Florida. But then you can click on this and let's see the outbound out of Riviera Beach. Let's ignore all this up here. Hey, buddy. My dog right here. Oh, there's 2 extra stops. So we're probably going to want to ask for a little bit more money on this. But it is 41% above my cost per day. But my cost per day, my net per day is going to go down as I'm going back up Florida because it looks like it's pretty deep. But let's look at outbound volumes here. 2 loads out of Riviera Beach going back to Alabama. So we can click on that and figure out what those are, see if it'll work. 29 loads coming out. So we click on that, and then we can look at the average rates coming out. $1. Here's one that's 7 cents a mile. That's probably a typo. They probably meant to say $500. $1.47 to go to Virginia. So that's probably your highest paying per mile. And your highest rates are going to go northeast. So if you don't want to go northeast, this probably may not be your best option. Also, if you want light only loads, this may not be your best option, right? Right. So you can look ahead. You don't want to just end up in an area and be surprised. And I've been guilty. I did that last week. And I'll give you an example. Let's see if I can do this here. Let's put this down to Nevada. 324 outbound. Yeah, let's remove Denver here. These Blue Diamond loads going to California. That's a load of hay. And they're multi-posted. And the brokers are fighting for those loads. Neo, come here. What are you doing? Sit. Good boy. Lay down. Treats help the dog behave. $1.49 to go to Webb City, Missouri, right? And then I can also look at where's everything coming out of. But if I put in Battle Mountain, this is kind of what CDN was talking about. Look at all these multiple postings. You got 3 listed. Here's King of Freight with, most of them. Right? A1 Values on board with this. Then there's a shipper out of Winnemucca. I haven't figured that one out yet, but they post, and they actually post at a decent rate usually. So my guess is that the shipper is either really difficult or there's other circumstances to it. And you could do the same thing with 1, 2, 3. So if we take Nevada, which is yellow here, you look at all the outbound. Where's it all coming out of? North Las Vegas, Fernley, Eureka. So a lot of Vegas stuff, right? So if I'm going to go into Nevada for a good rate, and it has to be a good rate, I have to look at, okay, the Vegas market's the one I want to tap into according to this, right? And a lot of the highest paying stuff, like $2,500, go to Oregon. Well, let's see what's coming out of Oregon. One load. Oh wait, 8 loads, right? There's one going right back to Las Vegas. So these are the tools that help me be as efficient as possible. Red Lady, good morning. Shannon says, I'm happy now sort of convincing me to pay for dad board. It's been worth it the last couple of months. I've made a lot more new, strong broker relationships. You can try. ChatGPT doesn't know anything about freight. All it's going to do is regurgitate what the other people say. Cascade says, where's the volume? Midwest. For you, Southeast. Buck Brown's at his mom's house. Say hi to mom there for us. Akron, Ogden, $1.55. Hope I don't wait too long to call about that one. Clip that last few minutes. Explain how you have your computer set up in various applications. Open Golden Nugget provided great show work to do. Thank you. Here, let's put the chat in the deal there. Good morning, Buck. When you see a low posted several times, don't expect a high rate unless it has specific requirements. Cascade says Winnemucca is multi-stop. He would know because um, he used to run quite a bit in van. Cascade, I was just there. No volume, right? The Southeast, there's no volume. The dog is trying to make friends with the cat, so forgive me. But yeah, I mean, it's yeah, I mean, there's so if you're coming out of California, Arizona, just go east. Maybe if you see, here's the thing. Here's where you can really succeed, right? I used to have a broker that had freight coming out of Colorado paying $3 a mile for long miles, multi-stop loads. And that was my go-to because you always made good money. You could be in Maine, you could be in Washington, you can be in Laredo. The highest paying load on the board usually went to Colorado. Gross rate. I'm not talking about rate. Well, even rate per mile. And so we get our money both directions. That's the key. If you can find a broker and relationship out of a bad market, then you're golden. Now, what happened to that relationship? Well, it changed hands. And then another carrier that had way more capacity than my little self came in and underbid us by quite a bit. Gone, done. Now, people might argue, well, then they didn't really value that relationship. No, they did during the time that we had it. And they even openly admitted that they missed us. But money talks because, as CDN has said, the shipper's job is to move freight for as cheaply as possible. That's why when you go on Amazon, you order a package. If you're not a Prime member, you order usually the lowest unless you need it right now. You're willing to pay more money. It's the same thing, just on a bigger concept, right? Freight volumes are definitely down everywhere. Now, that was one of the things I was going to talk about. Let me check my phone to make sure I'm not missing anything important here. Okay. So far, so good. Knock on wood. There you go. Oh, I should be watching myself here. This is the market report that CDN always supplies me every week. Oh, let's turn that down. Echo. All right. Now, rates have kind of trended up a little bit, but it depends on where you're at. I've noticed. Flatbed is leveled off, if not dropped a little bit. Yeah, that looks like it's dropped 2 cents. Hey, sit. Sit. What are you doing? Good boy. And but if the thing that kind of caught my eye here, where's it at? Outbound tender volume index, a measure of national freight demand. The takeaway with this chart that volumes are currently below 23 and 24 levels. So that's not a great trend. And the second chart shows capacity is loosening, but still tighter than 23 and 24. So the carriers dropping off is helping, but not completely. Like everybody's like, oh, if we get rid of these carriers that do this, and if we just get rid of more carriers, this and this will happen. Well, by then the market will correct itself. And trust me, the big post COVID spikes that we're all expecting to see are not going to happen because the shippers are going to do everything in their power to make sure that doesn't happen. They don't want to be caught with their pants down again, which is why you've seen all those warehouses being built across the country for the last 5 years, because they do not want that. If it's non-perishable, they're going to warehouse it now. They're going to use that expense. It's the same as when what does Walmart do before Christmas? About 3 months before Christmas, what do? They rent out shipping containers and they put them in the parking lot where you can't park anymore, and they fill them up because they do not want to pay holiday spike rates. And so it's the same concept, and this is evidence of that, right? Now, I don't go into the details of these charts. I'm just looking at the trends. Below the inbound ocean TEU volume index for China to US. The takeaway here is that ocean bookings coming from China to US have dropped after an initial surge since mid-May. So the tariffs are still screwing things up, right? And it's changed the dynamics. Now, here's the important thing. Below chart is cargo theft incidents reporting CargoNet during second quarter 2025. Hey, down. Sit. Down. Good boy. That's a big number. Top targeted commodity type, food and beverage, and household goods. So if you're hauling, Monster Drink or TVs, you're a target. Capacity trends. The outbound tender reject, which measures relative capacity in the market, declined to 6.12%. For reference, anything above 6 is showing capacity is tightening, but that's dropping. The van outbound rejects has decreased, gone down to 6%. Now the record low is 2.3. Hey, come here. Lay down. Lay down. Flatbed has decreased and reefers decreased. So that's the trend. I'm not worried about the actual numbers as much as, whatever else. Hold on a second. East to west, east to west long, west to east shorter hops using deadhead to adjust your toll rate per mile. Arizona Sidewinder, I appreciate that comment, but that's for a Tim Pool style channel, which is not here. But thank you for showing up. Provost Motorsports, what's up? How's it going? I heard you were in Joplin. Didn't even come see me. Man. I thought we were friends. But I know we are. You're probably just a very busy fella. Craig Fuller says English language and non-domicile CDL will remove 700,000 drivers. How long does it take to remove them, and how many are replaced by proper drivers? It's going to be a gradual change because they're going to find a way around that. They're going to find the loopholes. They're going to pay people off. You know, that's what's going to happen. And so it's not going to be like, it's not going to be, back in 2017 when the ELD mandate happened, man, that caused the spot market to spike considerably. It was a glorious time. Same thing with post-COVID, right? And so people are expecting the same thing, but these people are just going to figure something else out. They'll adapt, adjust, You're hauling cookies. You're hauling the Carbolicious. I've been running short loads, Georgia to South Carolina, but the need dried up, so now I'm in Ohio. Right, and you adapt and overcome. Shannon's selling cookies. But anyways, so yeah, I mean, it's so there's your trends. There's your market trends. Let's put this on reefer and see where you need to land your truck. All over the place. Washington's waking up, California, Arizona, Kansas. But just keep in mind that Kansas is green, but these other areas are yellow. So that's going to soften that market. Just like Florida shows green, it's easy to find a load. Just, is it going to be the rate that you want? But that's kind of the high traffic areas you want to kind of position yourself in if you want to take advantage of spikes in the spot market. So let's go to flatbed. And then we're going to call it. I have work I've got to do. Now, Washington's waking up. Does that mean the ports are getting some more stuff in, Cascade, or is that just one shipper that's waking up a little bit? 249 outbound, so that's good. 290. Let's see what that's showing for flatbed out of Washington. 499. So Washington is more outbound than inbound, which 123 showing that too. But let's go back to van here. 794 in, 260 out. So if you're in a van, Washington State is not for you. So let's look at Georgia. Georgia has died. Look at that cheap freight hauler. Wow. And the Midwest is waking up. Yeah, Southeast is officially, so now I'm not going to target my trucks towards the Southeast without getting paid to go in now. And it's going to start paying less to come out. So but that's kind of the thing. So 48065 if you want to try out the 123 low board. Ways to support the channel are below. I appreciate everybody. I appreciate you letting me vent to you about truth, Look, the truth is in the numbers. Don't hate the messenger. All right. Strength for today, hope for tomorrow. Peace. Hopefully, we'll see you Friday. Later.